Hi and welcome to MicroStrategy. My name is Michael Hoffmann and I'm working as a Principal Sales Engineer for MicroStrategy Germany. In this video, I want to show you how you can easily embed MicroStrategy content into Microsoft Teams and Microsoft SharePoint. By the way, these capabilities can be used furthermore to integrate MicroStrategy into other portals as well. So first, we will talk about the MicroStrategy library and how to integrate library into MS Teams and SharePoint. But it's the same way to integrate dossiers into MS Teams and SharePoint. It's very easy. MicroStrategy has a special object called Applications. An application can be a very specific library or an application using a dossier as a landing page in order to start navigation. And this application objects are correlated to a dedicated URL, and this can be integrated into MS Teams and SharePoint as well. If you would like to integrate library dossiers or applications into other portals, it's very important that you take a look at the URL API options, because you will use the URL to a dedicated library dossier application. And with the options you have, you can configure the functionality and the behavior as well. A very nice approach is to set up a kind of inbox, an email inbox for a MS Teams channel. I will show you how you can set this up. And if you have this inbox for a Teams channel, you can use this in combination with MicroStrategy alerts and MicroStrategy distribution services in order to push alerts and subscription content via emails into Teams channels. This is a really smart approach, and I will show you how you can get access to this email address that is generated by MS Teams if you set up a Teams channel. Moreover, it's possible to push messages from MicroStrategy collaboration services that is very powerful in order to collaborate on top of dossiers at the content, at the KPIs you see. And these messages can be synchronized to Teams channels via so-called webhooks. There's another video I created before that explains this approach in detail, so I won't cover it today in this video, but I would like to add this here to this list because this is a very nice approach to synchronize messages from collaboration services into MS Teams channels. Last but not least, MicroStrategy has a very powerful embedding SDK. And with that, you can configure and create very powerful and very specific embedding scenarios for any kind of web portal. This is not part of this video, but I just wanted to mention this. And this gives you much more power, in addition to what I'm showing here today, how to embed MicroStrategy into other portals using our embedding SDK and JavaScript and the REST API. Before I show you how to integrate MicroStrategy content into MS Teams and SharePoint, and I promise you this is really easy, just take a look first at what is MicroStrategy library, what are MicroStrategy dossiers, and what are MicroStrategy applications you're able to integrate into MS Teams and SharePoint. What you see here is MicroStrategy library. It's an end user or consumer portal, and in this portal a user gets access to all the dossiers and documents he is allowed to see. And it comes in combination with a very powerful full-text search engine, and the user is able to search on top of the complete data and the complete dossiers and the semantic behind that. Yeah. If a user wants to dive into a specific dossier, the user then navigates into this dossier. A dossier can have many different pages. It's very interactive, and users are able to jump from page to page or drill down in grids and graphs, and can navigate and share context between different visualizations. And this makes it very easy for a user to use the content and to use it in a very agile way. Okay, so we have the library, we have the dossiers. And so what is an application? An application can be used in two different options. The first option is it's a kind of limited library. So it looks like a library, but the content is limited. So for example, for a specific user group or so. Moreover, actions can be limited on top of an application. So it's a kind of limitation of capabilities and actions a user is able to perform on top of an application. The other option of an application is an application that uses a dossier as a landing page or home page. Okay, and from there, the user is then navigating, for example, from one dossier to another dossier, and the dossiers are sharing context. So it's a kind of very interaction navigation flow the user can use using this kind of very specific application type. So an application type where the dossier is acting as a landing page and home page with navigation capabilities. And now the question is, how can we integrate these three different, let's say, capabilities or options we have into MS Teams and SharePoint? If you take a look at the MicroStrategy documentation on our community portal, you can see there is a lot of content in regards to library SDK. And there you can see here a menu item, customizing MicroStrategy library using URL parameters. And this makes it very easy to configure how to access a library or an application or a dossier in order to embed this in a specific way into other portals. Yeah. So for example, MicroStrategy provides collaboration services on top of library and dossier. And here, for example, you can see the options you have in order to activate or deactivate this feature. In other words, you just add here this part into the URL you're referencing, and with that you can set up the behavior in regards to collaboration when integrating this object. Another example, you would like to enable filter editing or the entire filter feature, and if you don't want to have this, then you can activate or deactivate this. Another very interesting feature is rendering MicroStrategy library as an embedded app. And if you use this flag here, then you will see only the main content of a dossier without any toolbars and menu items and so on and so on. So you won't even see that this is really MicroStrategy. It's completely embedded, then it looks like an embedded app into MS Teams or MS SharePoint. And now let's jump into Teams. I created a demo team here called Customer Team, and I have only one channel called General. And you can see here that I integrated MicroStrategy content here in several ways into this channel. So the first one is I integrated a complete library as an example. So you see here the complete library is now running here in the channel, and if you select a specific dossier, then the dossier opens and you can see the content here in this item. Another option is that you integrate a dossier directly into this channel, but with the capability to jump back into the library. So you have the library capabilities, but it will start with a specific dossier. So let's click on this. You see now here a specific dossier. So the URL I'm referencing belongs to a specific dossier. But on the other hand, you see I have the main toolbar here still available with action items. So for example, I can jump directly into the collaboration, I can share content, I get access to my account. If I have the rights, I can even edit or maintain this dossier. On the other hand, I have access here to the table of content navigation, and if I like, I can jump back into the library. Okay, so in other words, this is here a direct integration of a dossier plus the capabilities to use library and to jump back into the library home page, if you like. So if you click here, then the library home page comes back. Okay, in the next example, I want to show you this special embedding option that you can use in combination with the URL referencing a specific dossier. Let's take a look at this. Okay, so here in this example, you see a dossier, but you won't see any toolbars or, let's say, furthermore action buttons or items or links that belong to MicroStrategy. So this is really 100% embedding scenario where you see just the data, just the graphs, and yeah, you don't see anything here from MicroStrategy. Okay, it's very easy to integrate this because we're using just this specific embedding flag, and yeah, and this configures the kind of embedding scenario here for us. Okay, in the next example, I want to integrate a specific dossier, but I want to limit the action items that a user can use on top of this dossier. Okay, so it's a little bit more compared to the 100% embedding version you see here, but with limitations in regards to specific actions a user is able to perform. Okay, let's take a look at this. So here you can see we get access to the dossier, yeah, but furthermore, you see we have the toolbar here enabled. But in this toolbar, as you remember, you have the options to see many different action items here, but I limited the number of action items here with the URL API. So with the URL API, for example, you can say, I don't want to see collaboration actions. Yeah, so here, the icon for collaboration services is then gone. Okay, so you can activate or deactivate specific actions here on top of a dossier using the URL API. In this example, I limited just for specific functions. So for example, the filter functionality here, or for example, the table of content navigation. I want to have this here on top of the dossier, and this is why I activated these capabilities using the URL API. One dossier can have many pages, and there is a default page. And when a dossier starts, then the default page comes up. But maybe you say, no, I don't want to jump directly into the default. I want to jump into a specific page that is part of the dossier. And you can do this using the URL API from MicroStrategy Library and Dossier. And you can see here an example. If I click here on Dossier page, then the dossier will start directly with a specific page that is part of the dossier. So we jumped into the customer page here in this dossier. But if you take a look at the table of content navigation, this is not the default. So if I click here on the default, this is the default page from this dossier. In the last example, I want to show you how you can integrate a MicroStrategy application into MS Teams. We're using the same procedures. So it's a dedicated URL, and we can combine this URL with additional parameters. A MicroStrategy application, on the one hand, can be a limited library in regards to actions and in regards to content, or on the other hand, an application can be a kind of dossier that acts as a landing page and a home page from where a user navigates into other business coherences. So let's take a look how this works. So here you can see I navigated directly into an application, and this application is just a subset of the dossiers that are available for the users. In this example, it's limited on top of just technical dossiers that provides access to MicroStrategy capabilities. And now I want to show you two things. The first one is we want to take a look at an example of a URL in combination with additional options that comes from the URL API to configure the behavior we want. And then I want to show you how this item works in MS Teams that you need to choose to integrate content from MicroStrategy into an MS Teams channel. So for example, here we have this embedding scenario here. And if we click here on this item, you can see we have the settings here. And here you can see the link that I'm using to reference this dossier in the MicroStrategy library. And if I jump to the back, to the end of this URL, you can see here this option that I used, app.embedded true. And with that, we don't see any toolbars here, any action buttons, and so on and so on, so that it looks really as a 100% embedding scenario. And as I mentioned before, you have many different options you can use. You can use them in combination for sure. You don't have the option to choose just one. You can combine them to your specific needs. And this makes it easy to integrate content here in SharePoint with the options you like. Okay, so the next one is, how does this component look like you need to choose in MS SharePoint in order to integrate content from MicroStrategy? Let's make an example. I'll click here on this plus sign. Okay, then this window comes up, and what you need to choose is website. And from there, you can give this tab a name, and here you just paste the URL, click on save, and then you're done. And now let's jump into SharePoint. In SharePoint, it's similar. So you're using exactly the same URLs. You're using the URLs to library, to dossiers, to applications, and in combination with additional URL API parameters. But the way how to integrate content in SharePoint is a little bit different in regards to the container you're using. Okay, so here, for example, I have a demo site. And on the demo side, you create your pages. And here, for example, is a page that I created before. Let's jump into this page. And here you can see in this page, I embedded a MicroStrategy dossier. So here you can see exactly the same dossier you saw before that I integrated into MS Teams. You have a little bit more flexibility here in SharePoint because you can use as many containers as you like. It's a component called embedding component that you can use. In other words, you can create pages where you see content from different MicroStrategy dossiers at the same time. Okay, so you have a little bit more flexibility to configure here the user experience in MS SharePoint. Okay, so now let's take a look how you configure this. If you create a page in a site in SharePoint, and we go here into edit mode, you see here the structure of our site. And you can see here, I have here this component. It's an embed component that you are using here. And if we click here on this component, you can see we can jump directly into the properties. And here you can see we have this iframe here, so you need to define a container. In my scenario, 100% width and height, and here is the URL to the dedicated dossier. As I mentioned before, it's up to you. If you would like to choose a complete library, a dossier, a specific page in a dossier, or if you would like to choose an application that was configured up front in MicroStrategy Workstation, because every single application has a dedicated URL as well, and you can use this in a similar way. Okay. Let's add an example that shows from scratch how you set up a page and how you integrate this embed component from SharePoint in order to use this in combination with content from MicroStrategy. So we start from scratch. I click here on New Page. I click on Blank Page, and I create a page. Okay, now you can give it a name and so on and so on. You can add your text here and so on and so on. And you can see here in my example, I want to configure directly an embed component here below this section. So I click here on plus and I enter embed. And you can see here, this is the component. If you click here on this component and you can click here on add embed code, in case you won't see this properties panel here directly, and here you just enter the iframe configuration with the link to the MicroStrategy content, and then you're done. It's really easy. As I mentioned before, you have more flexibility here to create, let's say, many different integrations at the same time on the same page. For example, you can choose one page from the first dossier as an integration, another container that chooses another page from another dossier, and so on and so on. So you're very flexible to create different pages with lots of different content here at the same time. Maybe you know that you can configure a dedicated inbox that can receive emails and can push these emails directly into a Teams channel. So this is really a power feature of MS Teams, and this feature can be used in combination with MicroStrategy distribution services. So for example, if you're sending out emails via distribution services, or if you're sending out alerts using MicroStrategy distribution services, this is really the perfect fit, because you can address the inbox here from a specific Teams channel, and then this pops up in the Teams channel. MicroStrategy alerting services are very powerful because you can define alerts on top of metrics and conditions and thresholds. And then MicroStrategy is scanning the business context, and you can configure how often it is done from MicroStrategy. And for example, if a threshold is true, then MicroStrategy is sending out an email with an indication about the context, and you can even integrate a link, for example, to a dedicated dossier, and the user is then able to navigate directly into the business coherences. So this is really a powerful feature. And I want to show you here, as a last example, how you can configure a new channel in MS Teams, and how you can configure this inbox with this email address. It's very, very easy, but you need to know it, otherwise you can't use it. So let's make an example. So we are here in my demo team, and I have only one channel called General, and I want to set up a new channel, and I want to configure this inbox for this channel. I want to get access to the email address I would like to use for distribution services in MicroStrategy. So I click here on Go to Settings, and here you can see the channels, and here I add a channel, and I call this MicroStrategy Alerts. Okay, and I add this channel. Okay, now Teams is setting up my channel. So let's pin this channel. So now you see here, here's my alerts channel. And now if you click here on this button, you see here, get email address. And if you click here on this button, now Teams is creating this inbox, with this dedicated email address. And what you need to know is you need to select this part here, so just the email address. So this is now the dedicated email address from this channel. And if you use this in combination with any kind of distribution scenario, then you can push emails directly into this channel, and you will see the content in this channel. Now this is really a cool trick. Okay. And with that, I'm at the end of my video. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little journey together with me. I hope you saw that it's really easy to integrate content from MicroStrategy using library, using dossiers, using applications in combination with MS Teams and SharePoint. I just want to mention at this point that MicroStrategy has much more to provide, much more powerful capabilities to embed MicroStrategy content into other applications. And for this, you're using the so-called Embedding SDK. Okay, this is really a JavaScript library, and you have much more options to integrate here, very specific MicroStrategy into other technologies. Moreover, MicroStrategy provides access to the core of MicroStrategy, the REST API. And on top of this, MicroStrategy has a Python interface, and that you can use in order to automate administration tasks, configuration tasks. And this is a perfect fit if you would like to integrate MicroStrategy as a strong component in other products, in other applications, because you're able to automate anything here with MicroStrategy. Thanks for watching. I wish you all the best. Bye.